Hi, it's Gene, retired in Mexico, and I'm here with my special guest, Professor Gumbo from Phoenix, Arizona, and we're excited. We're counting down our favorite albums year to year. We started in 1970. We are high school friends. We've known each other 52 years, and the professor was my mentor. And now, over the years, the student has developed some of his own tastes. So we're kind of like a Venn diagram. We got like this stuff in the middle that we both like, and then we've got some things that are our own taste. And so we're catching up. We're getting reacquainted. I moved to Mexico 6 years ago, and we haven't had any discussions about music hardly at all. So,
Has it been
yeah, it's
long?
great. And I'm on Instagram, I'm on Patreon, I'm on Facebook. So if you look up above, there's lots of opportunities to engage. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the don't like button. It doesn't matter. Uh, we like engagement, and so we kind of half checked in. The professor checked in with me, but I didn't check in with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. A little bit tired today, but I think that will pass as I wake up. I just didn't get to sleep well last night, and then I slept a lot this morning.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining on the channel here. And so what we do is we take turns taking turns, and the professor's doing the even years. I'm doing the odd years. This is 1985. So I'll be starting with my top 10. We do 10 albums. We name two songs from each album, and then we make a Spotify playlist of those 35 to 40 songs. And also, then we do our honorable mentions. And I like to start off by giving some context to the year. So, what was 1985? Well, actually, there was quite a few important things that happened. So, Reagan and Gorbachev met for the first time. The first Unabomber attack, first fatality. It wasn't the first attack, but so we had Reagan, Gorbachev, and the Unabomber. This was the year that New Coke was introduced. That was a business disaster. You remember that?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that didn't go over too well. It's called marketing, folks. The wreck of the Titanic was found. It was located. And so then, of course, later we went and explored that. Super Mario Brothers was released by Nintendo. That was a huge game. Even I've played a little bit of Super Mario Brothers. The first Blockbuster store opened in Dallas, Texas. Yeah, that seems quaint now, going down to the store and renting some videos, but we all did that, didn't we?
Hmm.
VH1 began broadcasting. We had MTV in 81 and 85 VH1 joined. This was the year that USA for Africa released We Are the World. And later that year was both the Live Aid concert and the Farm Aid concert. And it's almost easier to say who didn't play at those concerts than who did. Michael Jackson purchased the Beatles catalog. That was a big piece of news. Two Judas Priest fans shot themselves, spawning a backwards music subliminal message lawsuit. You remember that?
Yes, I do. I do. Um, it was crazy.
The some of the deaths included Ricky Wilson of the B-52s. He died of AIDS. Ian Stewart, kind of the sixth Rolling Stone, he passed away. He was a keyboard player. D. Boone of the Minutemen, and Ricky Nelson went down in a plane. He was also a television star, but big 50s star. Pretty good, actually. I like Ricky Nelson's music. And films included Back to the Future, The Color Purple, and Out of Africa. All right, does that bring back some memories?
It does. It does. Some of them welcome, some of them not so welcome.
So I'm going to start with my top 10, but before I do, let me just say that this was hands down, in my opinion, the weakest year that we've done. Every every time we do this, I have a hard time getting it down to 15. This year, I had a hard time getting it up to 15. Yeah, trying to get at least 4.5 star albums. A lot of 3.5, 4 star albums, but you had some of the old guard. You had Mick Jagger doing "She's the Boss." Neil Young released "Old Ways." Joni Mitchell released "Dog Eat Dog." The Clash cut the crap, and the Talking Heads' "Little Creatures." Now, I'm not saying those are all bad albums, but I'm just saying it's not quite at the level that we were used to. So yeah, it was a different kind of year. But number 10, I'm going to go with a hardcore post-punk album, and that's "Flip Your Wig" by Husker Du. Yeah, like Husker Du. We mentioned in the last episode that we actually met the guys at a record store signing, and then later that night went to an all ages show in Chandler, Arizona, and they put on a great set. The sound was pretty good, and I remember just the rhythm section just pummeling. And yeah, Husker Du, "Flip Your Wig." So this was the first album produced by members of the band, Bob Mould and Grant Hart, who's the guitarist and the drummer. And yeah, Husker Du's still not a huge band, although they were the best-selling band on SST Records. This is the last album they would make for SST Records. And the two songs that I'm picking, I'm going to pick one by both authors. And by the way, they kind of wrote 50-50 on this one. We were joking that Bob Mould wrote about 10 songs for every Grant Hart song, but Grant Hart really picked up the songwriting on this. The Bob Mould song I'm going to pick is "Makes No Sense at All." And for Grant Hart, "Green Eyes." All right, your turn.
Okay, my number 10 is not his strongest album from the 80s, but not his weakest either. Mr. Bob Dylan, Empire Burlesque. And Empire Burlesque, if I had any complaints about it, the reason it's number 10 rather than say number 4 or 5 is that I always had a feeling of being a bit overproduced. The production of it was, uh, it just like Dylan wasn't quite sure, or his producer wasn't quite sure where he should be in the middle of the 80s. Um, Nevertheless, it had some really good songwriting on it. I can't think of an album where Dylan's songwriting hasn't been at least acceptable. Usually it's great, and it is mostly here. I'm going with the two songs that opening and closing, the bookends. The first was "Tight Connection to My Heart," subtitled "Has Anybody Seen My Love?" And then the next one, just a minute, is "Dark Eyes." So very different in their sounds between. What am I? Why am I? I've lost my image, but that's okay. Uh, so the "Tight Connection to My Heart" is a is the production is very much mid 80s, and it's kind of up tempo, and it was a minor hit. Um, "Dark Eyes" is a more somber song, as you would guess from the the title of it, and it's it has stayed one of the better Bob Dylan albums from the time. So Empire Burlesque, "Tight Connection to My Heart," and has "Dark Eyes." Those are the two songs.
Yeah, "Dark Eyes," you're right. It's so different than the rest of the album. It's a great song. Yeah, wonderful. My number 9. So I said it was a weak year, so this gives me a chance to get some people in here I might not normally get. And a I had as honorable mentions in previous years, a couple Joy Division albums. They didn't make my top 10. I haven't had New Order on here yet. But I kind of like this album, Low Life. A lot of people would consider Power, Corruptions, and Lies to be their best album. I didn't have that on my list last year or the year before, whatever year that came out. But Low Life, which is a little poppier, is an album I like quite a bit. It's not a five-star album, but I like it. Opens up with Love Vig Love Vigilantes, I think is the opening song. It's actually tells a story, and yeah, it's interesting. I like this kind of more accessible New Order, and yeah, I'm going to go with the songs. I'm going to go with a couple kind of deeper tracks. I'm going to go with a song called Sunrise, which I like quite a bit, and then a song that was a single, which was Subculture, and those are consecutive tracks on the album. I like that right in the middle, that middle part of the album. But I think most people know New Order, so I don't need to go into great depth about them. Husker Du was a little more obscure, but New Order, I think, is fairly well known. So that's my number nine.
Right. My number nine is a band that you introduced me to and became throughout the 80s probably my favorite band, definitely my favorite American band throughout the 80s, and that is REM. And their 1985 album was their third album, Fables of the Reconstruction. And this they were still at the time on IRS records, and they were still considered an indie band. And they were getting a lot of notice at this time. They were a alternative band with a decidedly southern sound to them at the time. And both of the songs that I've chosen have a southern sound, and one of them was the single, and it's a rocker called Driver Eight, which always really whenever I listen to that song, I always really get into it. And the train conductor says, "Take a break, Driver Eight." Um, and so it's a good rocker. But the other one is notable because my cat, is named largely after this song. After he's actually named after three songs, but this is the main one, and that is Wendell G, which has kind of a banjo plucking type of sound, and it has very much a uh, southern sound to it. And Michael Stipe's vocals are really good, but it's almost haunting because it's dreamlike, which is not unusual for a band called REM. And but the lyrics are dreamlike. Um, if I can remember, I had a dream last night. Uh, Something built a trunk of chicken wire. I don't, but tried to hold it up, but the wild wire turned to lizard skin and it fell inside. Um, Very abstract, very mystical. So, Fables of the Reconstruction, Driver Eight, and Wendell G.
Great. I like those song choices. Speaking of REM, my number eight album is produced by someone who next year in 86 would produce REM. This is Don Gehman, who does a great job on, yeah, this is someone I'm not a big fan of, but I do like, and that's John Cougar Mellencamp with Scarecrow. And the next year he'll do Life's Rich Pageant, but it's a wonderful sounding album, really well produced. It was a big hit in the 80s. I don't know if people really listen to him now. His star may have fallen a little bit, but Scarecrow is, in my opinion, the best John Mellencamp album. Now, I haven't listened to every John Mellencamp album, so maybe I can't really make that statement, but it's great. The opening track, which is one of my picks, is Rain on the Scarecrow, Blood on the Plow. That's a great song about the farmers in America. And then the big hit was ROCK in the USA. And it's a throwback to the 50s. This is the album and the song that made um, Kenny Aronoff a star. So why do I say he's a star? If you watch these tribute shows on television, anything, whether it be the Kennedy Center or the Grammys or whatever it is, Kenny Aronoff is always seems to be the drummer on TV, and he really became a star here. And I've seen him play with Bob Seger, so he's also done a lot of session work and touring. And he's one of the great drummers in rock and roll. Man, in the pocket. Rain on the Scarecrow and ROCK in the USA. John Cougar Mellencamp. He was still had the Cougar in the middle of his name.
Did you ever hear his first album? I got it. I found it like cut out. And as Johnny Cougar. Um, there's
I don't think so.
Chestnut Street Incident, very much trying to be Bruce Springsteen, but it's like a young John Mellencamp was trying to be Bruce Springsteen, but his people, his handlers, wanted him to be David Bowie, and they put makeup on him, and so it was a really strange hybrid. Okay, my number eight is a band that could have gone much further, but we talked about on the last video how they had a van accident and the singer and guitarist D Boon died tragically, broke his neck. But this album was they moving a little bit in a different direction. The Minutemen were known for doing songs really, really fast, and they would fit a lot of like we talked about that with double nickels on the dime. Here, they sort of slowed down a little bit. I say sort of because of the second choice that I have, but the first one on three-way tie for last, kind of a ominous title there, um, is a song by D Boon that is probably one of the best songs he ever wrote, and it's not typical of the style of Minutemen, and that is "Price of Paradise," which is a political song about the state of state of the nation at that time. And it's interesting because he mentions um, he obliquely he mentions meat puppets. He says puppets of meat and bone, and the meat puppets were friends of the Minutemen. But it had really nice melody to it, really nice playing, and it's a song that even if you were familiar with the Minutemen, unless you really knew D Boon's voice, you wouldn't have known that it was them. But it's still one of my favorite songs by them. The other is we mentioned before that the Minutemen did a lot of covers, and there are several covers on here, including "Have You Ever Seen the Rain?" But that's not the one I'm choosing. I'm choosing the song "Hey Lottie Mama" by
Mm.
a song by Steppenwolf. And this song, if you want to know what the Minutemen sound like, it's very much a Minutemen song because they take the song at 90 mile an hour, and then on the verses on the chorus they slow down, so it's like like to show you all around, and then hey there, don't you know we're leaving early in the morning, and then they get going again. And so they were about our age, and so they had the same influences we did, and so they did covers of a lot of great songs, and their version of "Hey Lottie Mama" is definitely worth a listen. So Minutemen three-way tie for last, "Price of Paradise" and "Hey Lottie Mama."
That's going to be great on the playlist. So, yeah, that's another release on SST Records, which allows me to segue into my next album, which is another SST release. And Husker Du released two albums this year, and I've got the other one on here at number 7, New Day Rising. I remember when that came out, you were so excited about this band. You played it for me and just were jumping up and down. It is great. And at the time, I was like, okay, it's pretty good, but I've fallen in love with it over the years. Yeah, I slightly prefer it over Flip Your Wig, but it's close. They're very close. And yeah, so again, this just guitar distortion, kind of hardcore slash post punk, really good stuff. If you haven't heard them, check them out. And the songs that I picked are, they might both be Bob Mould songs, I'm not sure, but I think the first one's a Grant Hart song. You can tell me. The Girl Who Lives on Heaven Hill, is that Grant Hart?
It is. That's Grant Hart, yes.
And then Celebrated Summer. This was produced by Husker Du and Spot, the house engineer for SST. So The Girl Who Lives on Heaven Hill and Celebrated Summer from New Day Rising.
All right. My number 7 is an album that didn't get the critical acclaim that I felt it should. And this is by an old favorite of mine, Pete Townsend. And it's the soundtrack to a video that he made called White City. And the album is White City, a Novel. And when this came out, and I have not really lost my enthusiasm for it, but I was telling everybody that, hey, this is Pete Townsend finally making an album worthy of The Who. Um, and it was I don't take that back. It really was a great album. I I now, in comparison with things like Empty Glass and a couple other of his predecessors, it might have dropped a little bit, but it's still an excellent album. Hardly a bad song on it, and mostly great songs. They're very much Townsend coming into his own in a style. It's still the style of The Who, but it doesn't sound like it's Townsend doing Who demos. It's Townsend doing his own songs. And the first one is Brilliant Blues. And that's, was the single, Brilliant Blues. But the next one is still one of my favorite Pete Townsend songs ever. And that is White City Fighting. And that is a rocker equal to anything by The Who from Who's Next On. And I just love that song, White City Fighting. And there's other great songs on it, Give Blood, and but two that I chose are Brilliant Blues and White City Fighting from White City, a Novel by Pete Townsend.
Fantastic. Brilliant Blues. I don't remember that song, so I'm anxious to hear that on the playlist. Number 6, REM, Fables of the Reconstruction. So I have this slightly higher than you. I picked two different songs than you did. However, the producer, let me talk about the producer because it's Joe Boyd, who we've talked about on previous episodes. He's the producer for a lot of Richard Thompson and Richard and Linda Thompson albums that have made our lists. And I think he's an American, but kind of emigrated to England, I think. I'm not sure about that. I've looked it up before, and I seem to remember him being an American, but in any event, he hooked up with REM. And yeah, after working with Mitch Easter and Don Dixon, this has got a different sound. It's got a different sound, and they're leaning more into, I would say there's a little bit more going on with Peter Buck on this album. That's where I hear the biggest difference. More instruments. I think there's mandolin, and you mentioned banjo, I think. So there's some, they're trying to make something a little more rustic, but it's still REM. It still sounds like REM, and you can't quite just, I don't know. You can't really put them in that little box. They just still sound like who they are. But I love this album, It might be a very slight step down from their previous two albums, but not by much. And the songs I picked are Maps and Legends, which
Hmm.
is a favorite of mine. I love Driver 8, by the way. That was my third choice. But Maps and Legends and Can't Get There From Here. Love those two songs. So REM at number 6.
All right. So my number six is the first of uh, actually it's the second of two Husker Du albums from that year. As you pointed out, you've already mentioned both of them. Excuse me. And this one is where Husker Du really refined their sound. The album before, which I'll talk about in a bit, A New Day Rising, they had Beatlesque melodies, but they still had this really almost thrash post-punk sound. But with Flip Your Wig, they had, is it right to say mellowed? I don't think so. It's still rocking. It's just that the production is cleaner and it's not, there's not as much buzzsaw guitars on it. And as you pointed out, Gene, both Bob Mould and Grant Hart gave generous numbers of songs to this one. So the album Flip Your Wig has two songs. My favorite is a Bob Mould song, Makes No Sense at All. But the next one is the Grant Hart's Green Eyes. So we have Makes No Sense at All and Green Eyes from Flip Your Wig.
So we had exactly the same two songs. So that
Yes.
means you get to pick a third song for the playlist.
Okay, let's take a look here. Uh, Husker Du. I would go with oh, there's so many good ones.
The baby song.
No, I think I'd go with another Grant Hart, everything. Or no,
Everything.
I take that back. Let's go with the title track by Mould. Flip Your Wig.
Okay, flip your wig.
Flip Your Wig. Yeah. The baby song was a joke because it's only 46 seconds long.
Yeah,
But
that,
the,
that's that's really out of place on that album, but it's okay. It's less than a minute. I was really enjoying the wit and the wisdom the other day when I was listening to this album. It's another one of their sort of jams, like dreams recurring, except much shorter. But yeah, good album, good essay. Um, all right, I'm on number 5. And this was hard to pick some songs. I think we're really talking about 5 star. Yeah, my top 5 are 5 star, are what I would call 5 star albums. And here's where I got Tom Waits' Rain Dogs. Great album, probably Tom Waits' best album, maybe. I think so. Um, I really enjoy this one a lot. It's the middle album in a trilogy, and I prefer it slightly over the predecessor and the follow up. But Rain Dogs is great. Some people hate Tom Waits. I love him. He's so inventive and creative, and there's quite a variety on this album, which is why it was so difficult to pick two songs. But I'm going to go with Walking Spanish, which is, I think, a song about being sentenced to death. You're walking Spanish, but
down the
it's
hall.
interesting. What's that?
I said walking Spanish down the hall.
Yeah. And then I'm going to go with Downtown Train because it's just a great pop song. A little bit safe for Waits and his kind of old style. I was watching a video yesterday and the guy was reacting to Tom Waits and he says, "Is Tom Waits like Scott Walker that he started out mainstream and then kind of did his own avant-garde thing?" And I thought, yes, that's a really good analogy. Um, Absolutely. So we talked about him last year uh, with Swordfish Trombones, and I mentioned Kathleen Brennan, his wife, who really seemed to encourage him to go a little bit weirder. And Rain Dogs produced by Tom Waits. Great album. Uh, I think it's probably going to be on your list. If it is, I'm looking forward to your song selections. So number 5, Tom Waits, Rain Dogs.
Oh, right. Yes. And that was he had also changed labels at this point, which might have something to do with a different sound, but he was no longer that Southern California sound. He was just the out there in outer space weirdness. And as you pointed out, there's a couple songs that are more like his earlier stuff, but he also this is where this is Tom Waits' first real WTF album. You know, you're listening to it and one song after another, you go, what is this? This is cool. What is this? All right. So um my number 5 is a follow-up to my number 6. It's Husker Du's other album from the year, slightly better. But as you said, but they almost make a great pair, and that's New Day Rising. And you're right. When I heard this at the record store, I just got so excited about it, especially, and I didn't choose the title track, but the title track is just Mould shouting singing shout singing New Day Rising over and over and over again. But the two songs that I put were both Bob Mould songs, and one of them is "I Apologize,"
Mm,
and the other is "Celebrated Summer." So you know, both of those are great songs, pointing the direction for Husker Du to come.
yeah. No, I think I Apologize would be one of my top 3 songs from the album. So, yeah, great.
I
Fantastic.
love when he sings, now it's your turn. Will you look me in the eyes and apologize? And then he goes, about it.
Oh, such a great band. Number 4 for me. Um, this won't surprise you, but it might surprise you that it's at number 4. I have got the Water Boys.
Oh,
This is the Sea. Yeah, I really like this album. 5-star album. It's got a bunch of producers on it, so I'm not going to name them all. Different producers producing different songs, but it doesn't sound like it. It just flows. And there's a lot of songs I like on here. I like Spirit. I like the last song on the album. If you don't know the Water Boys, they're a Scottish band, and this is the last album that Carl Wallinger was with the band. He would go on to form World Party. Unfortunately, he died last year, and not last year, 2024. I keep forgetting it's a new year already, but yeah, rest in peace, Carl Wallinger. But uh, yeah, Mike Scott is the singer and chief songwriter, and yeah, they're from Scotland and they've got a bit of a Scottish feel to their music, but they're rock and roll, but they're also very spiritual. And I like that I mentioned the last track, This Is the Sea, which I almost picked, but I'm going to go with the opener, Don't Bang the Drum, which I just love. I just love Don't Bang the Drum. And then you have to pick The Whole of the Moon, probably their best song, arguably, but I certainly the most streamed song on Spotify. So the Waterboys, This Is the Sea at number 4.
I totally agree. It's a fantastic album. And guess what? Hold on a second. Guess what my number 4 is? The Water Boy.
Waterboys.
This is the Sea. And I'm cheating a little bit here by going with the extended release that they made later with one of the songs. But the first song, without a doubt, it's their best song, "The Whole of the Moon," which is great lyrics, great production, great melody. Everything is great on this song. So that's that one is a no-brainer. But the other one on their album, on their later album, Fisherman's Blues, they did a cover of Van Morrison's Sweet Thing. But before that, they did Sweet Thing in the style, the production style of This Is the Sea. And it's even better, I think, than the later version of it. And so I would go with um, the Whole of the Moon and their cover of Van Morrison's Sweet Thing, their first cover of Sweet Thing.
Wow, I haven't heard that. So I hope that's on Spotify.
I think it is. I'm pretty sure it is. If not, I would say, uh, I think we're okay. Well, if not, we'll talk about it. But I think it is on Spotify.
Okay. If it's not, maybe the title track.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, several good songs in here. Yeah, the lyrics are just great to Hole of the Moon. I saw the rain-covered valley, you saw Brigadoon. I saw the crescent, you saw the Hole of the Moon. And it's just great, isn't it? And it's part of what they called the big music, along with the Alarm and U2 and Big Country. And but I'm a sucker for it. So yeah, we're both at number 4 on that one. All right, number 3. I'm back to SST Records. My personal favorite album by Meat Puppets, Up on the Sun. Now, the critical darling is the second one, Meat Puppets 2, but I have a slight preference for Up on the Sun. It's great. Admittedly, Kurt sings off key on some of the songs. He's a little pitchy, but I don't care. It's just so much fun. And when he can't sing, he whistles. So it's fantastic. Spot produced this, the same one that produced New Day Rising. And I love it. I love every song on this album. It's 5 stars to me. And if you're not familiar with Meat Puppets, they're hard to describe, but I was thinking they are psychedelic desert stoner punk.
That's
Best,
a good.
that's the best I can describe them. Uh, but just great band, one of my favorite bands. And so, excuse me, I got some allergies. The songs that I picked are the title track, Up on the Sun, and then a song called Away. But I could have picked any number of songs from here. Great album, Meat Puppets Up on the Sun. If you haven't heard it, I really recommend it. Your turn.
Great. Okay. Um, for me, we have my number 3 is Tom Waits' Rain Dogs. And I I definitely concur with um, Downtown Train. That's just one of Tom Waits' best ballads. And it's a shame to me, but a reflection of general taste in music that his version, his original, should have been overlooked in favor of Rod Stewart's cover. Rod Stewartizes it, which in the by the 80s, and don't get me wrong, I loved early Rod Stewart, but by the 80s, Rod Stewart was a one-trick pony. He had one style and he would sing everything in that style. And it was just his I have a sore throat, but still can sing melodically voice. Uh, so basically, um, his version of it isn't bad, but it doesn't compare to Tom's version. The same thing happened to Tom earlier in his career when the Eagles covered it from his first album, Old 55. And Tom's version is so good, and the Eagles version is so meh. I mean, it's not really meh, but compared to Tom's, that's the thing. When you take a Tom Waits song and cover it, it damn better be really good because it's hard to compete with Tom on his own work. So that's one of them, but the other is Jockey Full of Bourbon. Hey, little bird, fly away home. Your house is on fire. Your children are alone. And the way that I found out about Tom Waits and this album was Cindy and I went to a indie film uh, thing, and the main film was Down by Law, which is a Jim Jarmusch film, still one of my favorites, and it has John Lurie from the Lounge Lizards and Tom Waits and Roberto Benigni, who kind of is the odd man out. All three of them in a small southern town in the bayou get arrested and they're thrown in jail together. And they escape. And the story is of them escaping across the bayou. But Roberto Benigni doesn't speak very good English in real life. But he's this little Italian guy. And so they're talking about what they did to get thrown in jail. And I'm John Lurie did just some little gangsterish thing. I think some pimping thing. But Tom Waits, he got busted for somebody. He was down by law, but he was down. Somebody offered him $50 to drive across town in this car and then just leave the car there. And so he agreed to it. And he got stopped. And there was a dead body in the trunk. And so, so they're talking about what they got in trouble for. And both of them are very minor things, except, well, not having a dead body in the trunk, but he didn't kill anyone. But then they asked Roberto Benigni what you're in for. I killed a man. You killed a man with a pool ball. I threw it at him and killed him. So they're oh. And it uses the soundtrack is based on songs from Rain Dogs.
Um,
Speaking of which, a little aside, there is a brand new uh, movie by Jim Jarmusch coming out anytime. It's called Fathers, Brothers, Sisters, Mothers, or something like that, or Fathers, Mothers, Sisters, Brothers. I don't remember, but the two main actors are Tom Waits and as his son Adam Driver. And
mm,
in the and there's just a great, it cracks me up every time I see the trailer. Um, he Tom Waits is saying in his very gruff voice, he says, "You've always been my favorite son." And Adam Driver says, "Well, thanks, but that's because I'm your only son." Um, and so
right.
and there was a vampire, not a vampire, a zombie movie that Jarmusch made, and Tom Waits was in it, and he played um, Hermit Bob, and he had this huge hair and a huge beard, but he was Hermit Bob. And Coffee and Cigarettes. Tom Waits was in a lot of Jim Jarmusch films, um, and so uh, this is when I discovered Tom Waits, and I still love this album. It's the second WTF album he made, but it's more WTF than anything else because after this one, you kind of expected him to be weird. So, Tom Waits, Rain Dogs, Jockey Full of Bourbon, and Downtown Train.
Great essay. Yeah. And, I like, Tom Waits was in a Robert Altman film,
Yes, he was.
and Shortcuts or something it was called. And he's dancing in a doorway with Lily Tomlin during an earthquake. I love that scene. So yeah, excellent actor.
Mentioning fishing with John, I mean, John Lurie from the Lounge Lizards had a little PBS show called Fishing with John.
Hmm.
And Fishing with John, the conceit of the show was that John would ask all of his famous movie or musical friends, one of them at a time, if they wanted to go with him to some exotic location and go fishing. And they just assumed that he was a professional fisherman. I mean, they knew that he was a musician, but they assumed that he knew what he was doing. And he knew nothing about fishing. And the one with Tom Waits is hilarious because when they get out into the water, it's somewhere down in the Caribbean. Um, Tom Waits catches the first fish. And he says, "So what am I supposed to do with it?" And Lurie, "I don't know." Said, "Should I put it down in my pants?" And he does. He puts it down in his pants. And then he catches another one. He says, "So I put this one down there too?" Well, it seems they're fighting for dominance.
Yeah, he's just naturally funny. All right, my number two is going to really, really, really please you. because I haven't had this person on any of my lists or honorable mentions. Finally, it's time for Kate Bush. You probably don't know how much I like this album, but it's at number two, Hounds of Love. This is when I really started, I like Kate Bush. I like her early stuff. And it's been great listening to those songs on the playlist. But man, Hounds of Love, that's when I really, truly got on board with her. And, because this album is blown up, our viewers, which my my analytics tell me that the audience for this channel is mostly under 35. And I think people under 35 know this album because it blew up with Stranger Things and other types of media and TV shows and I don't know, possibly commercials. It seems to be a pretty well-known album and it rose up on the charts. Yeah, Kate Bush had a number one single 40 years after she released it. And that's a record. That's an absolute record, but that'll show you the power of the visual. We're in a visual age, so people watch things more than they listen to things today. And yeah, but I love Hounds of Love, and she produced it. She's a good producer. I wanted to get a song from the Ninth Wave. My favorite on there would be And Dream of Sheep. And I was going to pick that, but you really can't deny the power of the first side. So I'm going to go with Running Up That Hill and Cloud Busting, which both had really good videos. Cloud Busting is, I love that cello. Dun, 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 dun. It's just, I can just bring it right to mind. Cloud Busting is a great song. Are you pleased I had that at number two?
Very much. And I understand that the difficulty in choosing a song from the Ninth Wave because it's a suite of songs and they all kind of lead one into another, you know. So,
Mhm.
but you just got to listen to the whole thing. Kate produced the album herself, as you pointed out, and did it in her home studio. And she was really, really in debt to Peter Gabriel at the time, trying to make kind of a Peter Gabriel-ish album, which she had done earlier with The Dreaming. But uh, but Kate's vocals at times are crazy on this album. And in an interview, she said, "Well, when I drink a bit, I start getting crazy." And our friend Ralph said she must have been totally shit-faced on, the song, "The Big Sky." So, anyway, every song is great. And like you said, the first side is just a great side in itself, and then you have the Ninth Wave. So yes, I'm very pleased that you chose that. My number two is a band that became my favorite neo prog band, my favorite prog band that formed after 1980, and this was their third album, Miss Marillion's Misplaced Childhood. Now, many people consider this to be the best album with Fish, and it might be, although I think maybe Clutching at Straws might be a better one. But still, it's a great album. If there's anything about it, it's that it hit the mainstream a little bit better, but in a way that worked really well. They had after the opening track, they have two songs that both were singles, um, Kaylee and Lavender. But they're also these suites of songs. The whole thing is a concept album about growing up. But I I have to choose the first single, biggest single ever, only Marillion single with Fish to ever make the American charts. And Cindy and I were already aware of them, but this was 1985, and a few years later, when Cindy got pregnant and we found out we were going to have a girl, Cindy already knew the song she wanted, the name she wanted to call her, and that is Kaylee. Now, here's a little bit of trivia about the name Kaylee. Kaylee, according to Mark Kelly, the keyboardist, was a composite of two girlfriends of Fish, not simultaneously, but consecutively. One of them, her name was Kay, and the other was Lee, and he put the names together. Go ahead, look it up. You will not find any Kayleys, not spelled like that, prior to 1985. Okay. You just won't. And if you look at the name, and Kaylee, of course, our daughter, has done it, you have this, like, right after 1985, the name, especially in the UK, goes up. It becomes really, really a popular one.
Mhm.
And so when as a teacher, I met a lot of Kayleys, and a couple of them were born before 1990 when our Kaylee was born, but none of them were born before 1985. So little trivia about the name Kaylee. It's, by the way, the name itself phonetically, or it corresponds to a Gaelic word, which is spelled completely differently, but it's pronounced Kaylee, and it's a Gaelic word that means a town celebration, something that you would be familiar with, Gene, translated into Spanish, fiesta.
Mhm.
So that's a Kaylee is a town celebration or a fiesta. And I'm sure that Fish knew that when he wrote the song. So there's Kaylee, great pop song, great pop prog song. And then the next one is from near the end of the album, and that is Childhood's End with a question mark. Childhood's End. Is this your childhood's end? I am your childhood's friend. Lead me on. Um, Great instrumentals, great vocal. Um, but in many people's opinions, the zenith of Fish's tenure, four album tenure with Marillion.
All right.
So Misplaced Childhood, Kaylee, and Childhood's End.
So my
And
number one, I'm, I don't think you can guess. So I think it's going to surprise you. Not that I like them, but that this is number one. My number one album of 1985 is The Replacements.
oh
Tim,
yes,
I love Tim. I also love the next album, Pleased to Meet Me. Man, these guys, I just get them. I just get them and I sing to the songs. And I don't know, there's just something about this blend of post-punk and sort of traditional rock and roll, but high energy, and the throaty vocals of I just spaced out the name of the uh, chief songwriter, but yeah, I love the Replacements, and I could pick any song on here. It's such a great album from front to back. 6 stars, as you say. But I'm going to go
yes,
with the songs. Well, if you don't know the band, they're just, they're not a huge band, but man, they're critical darlings, and I love them. They're kind of a. I kind of always heard them as, some bands are weed bands, some bands are LSD bands. Man, this is an alcohol band. This is a
Paul,
drinking band,
Paul
and I love
Westerberg.
them. And I'm going with the songs Bastards of Young. Did I get that right? Bastards
Yeah.
of Young and Left of the Dial, produced by Tommy Erdelil. And this is a great sounding album. The Replacements, Tim.
The singer songwriter was Paul Westerberg,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
they were like Husker Du. They were a Minneapolis band, and they were post punk, but they were drinking post punk. And that's kind of an odd thing, but that was them. I think part of what made their sound so great was Westerberg's constant inebriation. Uh, okay, my number one, Kate Bush, Hounds of Love. Boo, boo. Um, and I I really struggled because I wanted to put something from Ninth Wave, just like you, and I thought about putting the final song, which brings goosebumps every time I hear it still. Um, uh, and that is, the closing song from the Ninth Wave. Uh, but I went instead with the two songs from the first album. I mean, from the first side, and those are the two first songs: "Running Up That Hill," which has to be on there, and the song "Hounds of Love,"
Mm.
which is the other one. And that's where she's doing the. Um, so uh, this is the album that made me go from liking Kate Bush to absolutely loving Kate Bush. Um, and it's my favorite album by her, still my favorite. And I don't think anything else will ever go beyond it. But uh, oh, by the way, that final song was The Morning Fog, if you want to hear it. The Morning
Mm.
Fog. But yeah, Running Up That Hill and Hounds of Love. And then there's The Big Sky, and it's just every song is good. So Running Up That Hill, Hounds of Love from Kate Bush's Hounds of Love. Matter of fact, when this was first released, before it was released, I bought it as a 12-inch single. Um, and uh, and there's Kate looking really, really erotic with two Weimaraners sleeping on her. Um, okay, so that's Kate Bush, Hounds of Love, my number one Kate Bush album and my number one album from 1985.
Well, that was a pretty interesting top 10. And like the Venn diagram I talked about, we had a number of common things and then we had our own picks. So, yeah, let's see. I had one, two, three, four, five, 6 out of 10 we had in common. 4 out of 10 we did not. All right.
So,
So, honorable mentions. So I mentioned that I actually had trouble finding 5 albums that I really truly loved, but I'm going to go with these 5. Um, Richard Thompson, Across a Crowded Room, produced again by Joe Boyd. Not quite as good as the album before or the album before that, but still really good. Uh, most of the songs are very strong. It's well produced. If I had to pick a song for our playlist, I think I went ahead and picked songs for these 5 honorable mentions. Love in a Faithless Country would be my pick, but several good songs on there. All right, my next honorable mention is the Jesus and Mary Chain Psycho Candy. I do like this album. I was reading that they were trying to do something that blended Einstürzende Neubauten with the Shangri-Las,
hmm,
and then with a touch of the Velvet Underground. And yeah, that's not a half bad description. These are brothers, Jim Reed and forgot the other guy's name, but the Reed brothers. And yeah, it was a very influential album, very influential. A little bit like Husker Du in that there's a lot of guitar distortion, but it's mellower in its tempos. And it really does harken back to kind of the girl group. So my song would be Just Like Honey. Speaking of Einstürzende Neubauten, I've got Halbermensch on here, which means half man. And that's a great album produced by Gareth Jones and the band. And I had a song on here, but I was listening to it today. I'm going to change it. I'm going to change my song selection to, and I want to get this title right because it's in German. So give me just a second. But I'm going to go with the song Sehnsucht, Sehnsucht, as he says, Sehnsucht zittert. And that's a really good song. It's only 3 minutes long, but this is an industrial band for those of you watching who might not be familiar with them. a lot of industrial instruments, sheet metal, 55-gallon drums, hammers, whatever. Great stuff. Not easy listening. My next album on here is Jason and the Scorchers, Lost and Found. Not a great album, but a good album. This is kind of an Americana thing. It was produced by a guy named Terry Manning. So Jason and the Scorchers. So let me tell you why I picked this. There's kind of this little Americana underground thing that happened in the 80s, and it was bands like the Long Riders, Green on Red, just this kind of country folk rock thing that was popular in the 80s, along with other genres like you had the neo psychedelic movement with bands like the Rain Parade. And I like a lot of this music from the 80s, this sort of early indie rock. And Jason and the Scorchers, Jason Ringenberg singing with his sort of nasal country sound. But I'm going to go with the song Shop It Around, which is actually the title track. And then my last pick is by a band I like a lot, The Fall. I like The Fall. Mark E. Smith. This is This Nation's Saving Grace, but I'm going to go with the bonus version because they added the song Cruisers Creek, and that's my favorite song from the album. Produced by John Leckie, who also did Magazine, XTC, Radiohead, and the Stone Roses. So Richard Thompson, Jesus and Mary Chain, Einstürzen der Neubauten, Jason and the Scorchers, and The Fall.
By the way, Richard Thompson was unhappy with the release of Across a Crowded Room for a long time. He didn't like the performances, and he never really cared too much for the album, although he warmed up to it later. But at the time, it was recorded on the solo tour that led to his divorce. Okay. It was released a bit later, but I think it was recorded in 82.
Oh,
Um, but not released until 84 or 85. Sorry, not released until 85. Um, so my my next five, my honorable mentions. One album was a blockbuster, and sonically it was a great album, and that's Dire Straits' "Brothers in Arms." And I would choose the song. I would not choose uh,
Money for
the
Nothing?
Money for Nothing. No, I like the title track, "Brothers in Arms." Um, Jesus and Mary Chain, Psycho Candy. Just
Oh,
like you, I would choose Just Like Honey. So I love that song. I love the album. Brian Ferry, Boys and Girls. This was originally up in my top 10, but I had to knock something out. I had to keep, I mean, I had to keep both of Husker Deuce in there. So Boys and Girls by Brian Ferry, and the had his wonderful single Slave to Love, which was the direction that Ferry was going at the end with Roxy Music. The Pogues, Rum, Sodomy, and the Lash. I love that title.
yeah.
It's based on Winston Churchill's description of being in the Royal Navy. But I kept going back and forth between two songs. One is the opening track, a rocker, which is "The Sick Bed of Kilcullen." Uh, um, but I went with a more pretty song, a kind of it's not exactly a ballad, but it's semi-ballad, "A Rainy Night in Soho." And it has some of um, the best singing that was done on the album.
Okay.
So, uh, so Rum, Sodomy, and the Lash with "A Rainy Night in Soho." Um, and then finally, the Replacements, Tim.
Mm,
And the song that I would choose is the closing track, "Here Comes a Regular."
yeah, that's a great song. Yeah, it's kind of sentimental in a way, and yet it's about drinking. I love those five picks. Of course, two of them were on my list, but I like your other ones. I listened to that Pogues album quite a bit and cut it at the last bit, but it's a good album. All right, we usually go through who we've seen in concert, so I'm going to do that. So I have seen Jason and the Scorchers. I saw them at the Mason Jar Lounge. They were great. Tore the roof off the place. Good rock and roll band. More rock and roll in concert than they are on record. So very high energy show. I enjoyed it. Richard Thompson twice. Both times we saw Richard Thompson was solo without a band. Husker Du saw one time on their Warehouse Songs and Stories tour. Turned out to be their last tour. Um, I have I've never seen John Mellencamp, and in Phoenix, Arizona, when he was performing at Sun Devil Stadium, he got hit in the head with a beer bottle and said he was never going to tour Phoenix again. And for a long time, he kept that. So if you're from Phoenix, Arizona, it was kind of hard to catch John Mellencamp because he boycotted the town. We have some rude people in that town. REM, I've seen four times. Um, I have seen the Waterboys at Civic Plaza, and it was the Room to Rome tour in the early 90s. And that was a great show. The sound was good. It was a little loud, but it was still a great show. And so I was happy to see the Waterboys. Meat Puppets, I have seen nine times. Yeah. I mean, they are from Phoenix, Arizona, so they played all the time. And sometimes I go to see them two or three times in one year. So I've seen them in all sorts of venues in the Phoenix area. And then I saw the Replacements on their last tour, All Shook Down in 1990. And it was a great show. One of the guys had quit the band by then. I think it was Tommy Stinson. And so they had a new guitarist, but didn't really matter. And man, that was a great show. They were rocking out. So those are the bands that I've seen.
All right. Haven't seen too many of the bands, but part of that was because many of them didn't come here after I had discovered them. I've seen Bob Dylan, I've seen REM, um, saw Husker Du with you, uh, and seen Marillion several times, of course, but not with Fish. We had the opportunity, but then the show was canceled.
Right.
Um, and I, I've only seen Kate Bush in my dreams.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, then let's see, did I saw Brian Ferry with Roxy Music, but not solo.
hmm
Um, and that's it.
Okay. All good shows, though.
Mhm.
Well, what's your take on the music, 85? Do you agree with me it was a weak year?
An unusual year in that if I look at all the albums that I chose, there's not really a coherent sound to them. People were doing different things of their own, and so I do agree with you that compared to 1984, yeah, it was not as strong as 1984. But you had that 1-2 punch by Husker Du. You had Tom Waits' Rain Dogs and Marillion's Misplaced Childhood and Kate Bush's Hounds of Love. I mean, you know, how can I turn my nose up at that?
Right. Well, next year I've already put together my list for 1986, and I'm going to be a little more excited about that year. And I think it's a little stronger. So I look forward to recording with you next week if you're available.
I will be. I should be, unless I'm dead.
Well, I hope not. And same
I,
goes for me. Yeah, we are getting up there, but I think we're still vital. And so I really enjoyed this. This was actually fun. I said it was a weak year, but it doesn't mean it wasn't a fun video to record. In fact, it allowed me to get some people like New Order on my list that I hadn't put on any lists before. So, and John Mellencamp and people that were, might not have made the list if it was a stronger year. So I'm not disappointed at all. And well, you got a salutation for everybody?
Well, just a thought before we leave for those of you who are part of our generation. I met with a friend of mine that I haven't seen in a while. You'll remember him from going to see Peter Hamill with us, Kevin Geary. And
Mm-hmm.
Kevin is turning 60 this year. But we met at the Dubliner and we were talking, and they were playing a lot of classic rock, and we were talking about all the people who have died. And I mean, it's not just like one or two. And it's not just like the people that you've killed, Gene. It is, you know, I mean, it's like they're just dropping like flies now. They really are. Well, it's because the people that we like are like up within the upper 10 years of our age, and we're both pushing 70, so they're all pushing 80. Okay, and so many of them are dying, and it's like it's no longer funny. I mean, it wasn't funny to begin with, but it's like you see people like just the other day, um, Bob Weir died, the
Right.
Grateful Dead.
We saw
Um,
him.
so
We saw him.
yes, so Kevin and I came up with an idea, a drinking game. You're at a place and they're playing classic rock. Every time someone from the band has died, you got to take a drink. And if it's the band with a capital B, you got to freaking take 5 drinks, which is really, but and so we started playing that as we were listening. As we were listening, we had some Guinness and like, oh, here's somebody that died, to drink it, So it's and so we used to have a running joke that Gene would see somebody in concert and then they would die. Well, that's no longer a coincidence. I mean, it's a coincidence, but it's just something that happens. Um, so the best musicians are dying, and my only consolation is that they are going to a better place if they were cool. Most of them were. Um, and that better place is the Bowieverse, a place that 10 years ago, when the late, great, wonderful David Bowie passed away, he didn't die. He left this planet to go and form the Bowieverse, where people are cool forever and listen to cool music forever. And the only way you get to go there is if you're cool in this life. So I'm trying to be as cool as possible, so that I can go there and be with David Bowie in the Bowieverse. So,
I can't
so
beat that salutation, so I'll just say, as we say here in Bonita, Mexico, buen dia.